Hello and welcome to the first video of Engfluential ISC, where I am going to be teaching you transformation of sentences in this class. Of course, one class is not enough to understand all the kinds of transformation of sentences. This is part 1 of the series. Okay, so let's see what ISC asks and how we can answer those questions. So, number 1, the question says, no sooner did the bell ring than the students rushed out to play. You are supposed to convert it to start with as soon as, right? So how do we do that? It's very simple. The rule is that whenever you begin with as soon as, there is a condition that is given in the original sentence. You say that and you add a comma and then you move on to the result. What is that? Let's say if I am to convert this, I will write first is as soon as, so as soon as. Here, since the sentence is saying did, right? The original sentence has did. If you see here, whenever there is a did, it means it is in past tense, and because of the past tense, sentence has to be past tense, right? But when it comes to did, the word did, the first verb to come after it is in the present tense. Okay, so we will still consider the sentence as being in the past. So my answer to this would be as soon as the bell rang, comma. Now the condition was that the bell is ringing, right? That was our condition, that the bell rings and what happens? The students rush out to play, something every student in school does. Even I used to do that in school. So as soon as the bell rang, because the original sentence is in past, the result is that the students rushed out to play. So we are going to write the students rushed out okay. Now if the original sentence was in the present tense, you will maintain present tense. Okay, if the original sentence was no sooner does the bell ring, then you would write as soon as the bell rings. Okay, now moving on to the next rule. Let's say the question is, as soon as the sun rises, the birds start chirping. You are to begin with no sooner. Now the rule with no sooner is, and this is a very easy way to remember, that always remember no sooner than. Okay, so whenever you remember no sooner than, you will be able to remember that the sentence has to start with no sooner, and in the middle between the condition and the result there is the word than. Okay, so let's look at this. As soon as the sun rises, the birds start chirping. The rule for it is that first you use no sooner and then you have to use a helping verb. The helping verb can be do, does or did. Then we give the first condition and we use than to join. Then we give the result. What happens if the condition is met? Then what happens, right? So no sooner so it says no, as soon as the sun rises. So it is in past tense? No, it is in present tense, right? So no sooner we will use does. No sooner does the sun rise, then we remember that we have to use than here. No sooner does the sun rise than the result is that the birds start chirping. Now in most cases you will find that the result, okay, The result part is something that is written as it is. You'll find that in most cases. Now let's move on to question number 2. Now, there is a certain exception to this. What is it? If you see the question, she had finished her homework before her friends arrived. You can't say no sooner does she finish her homework, because it is already written she had finished her homework. So what can we do? This is an auxiliary verb, right? Now, if there is an auxiliary verb provided, then you have to use that auxiliary verb in the sentence with no sooner as well. So what will I write? I will then write no sooner had she finished her homework than her friends arrived. Right? So you see that I am still maintaining the rule. However, since the auxiliary verb was already provided, I am not using do, does or did. Okay? So remember this exception to the rule. Don't try to always force do, does, did to a sentence beginning with no sooner. Find the auxiliary. Okay? Right. Let's move on to the third kind of questions. Now, the third kind of question is one where it is asked begin with hardly. Okay, so how can you begin with hardly? The rule is that just like no sooner uses a helping verb, hardly also uses a helping verb, but no sooner's helping verbs are do, does, did. Hardly has, have, had. Okay, these are the words or the verbs that hardly uses, right? So rest is same, that there is a condition and a result. However, in this case over here we were using than, right, with no sooner. However, in this case with hardly you have to use when. Okay, so no sooner than and hardly when. Remember these two combinations, right? So with no sooner you always have to give than. With hardly you have to give when. Remember this combination. So no sooner did I step out of my house than it started raining. Begin with hardly. So what will you write? First of all, let's try to understand the grammar. Let's try to understand the past tense, present tense, which tense it is in. So in this case we see that it is written with did. So as I explained earlier, whenever there is did, you have to understand that it is in past tense. Does not matter that the verb coming after it is in present or not, it has to be in present. So you will write hardly had I stepped out of my house. Condition is met. The condition was that I am stepping out of my house. That was the condition. So that is met. We have to use when. When. Result, as I said, it usually remains the same. When it started raining. Right? So this is the way you write a sentence beginning with hardly. Okay. Next, we have the words although and though. So what's the difference? Try to understand this. We use although and though. Whenever we have an unexpected result or an unexpected outcome after a particular condition was met, right? So earlier I was always pointing out to you a normal result of the condition being met. Here for the first time we have an unexpected result. Result does not match the condition. Okay, it's the opposite result. It's unexpected. That is when you use although and though. Let's take up an example. We went out on a walk in spite of the rain. Written in the text, begin with although. Now although and though are very interchangeable words, right? The only difference is that although can be joined using just a comma. Though has two options. You can join though with a comma. You can also join though with yet. So there are two options you get with though, but with although you only get one option to join, that is with a comma. So remember that. Let's try to answer this. We went out on a walk in spite of the rain. The answer to this will be although in spite of the rain we went out, right? So answer is that although it rained. How do I understand rained? Because the first verb is went. Went is the past tense of go. So although it rained, then I use a comma, very important. Although it rained, comma, we went out on a walk. So you see, if it is raining, then it's not expected that someone would go out and have a walk, right? People usually go out for a walk if it's very cold, if it's an otherwise bright and sunny day, if it's in the morning. But people would avoid going to a walk if it's raining, right? So that is why it's important that you only use although to show an unexpected result, right? So it's raining, yet someone is going out for a walk, right? So that's the case. If I am to use though, I can just copy this. I can say though it rained. There are two options. I can either stick with comma, I can also use a yet. So I write yet we went out on a walk. All right. So this was rule number 4. Let's move on to the next one. Next we have two things together. Similar to rule 4, two things together. There is in spite and there is despite. Both are pretty similar in meaning. However, with in spite we always use of. With despite we don't have to use of. In spite of and despite both follow the same rule as although and though. They are used whenever you have an unexpected result to something. Okay, so if the question is although he worked hard, he failed in the exam, I can just write in spite. As I said, you have to use of. So in spite of, then the ing form of the verb, right? The verb here is work. So in spite of working hard, then a comma. Comma is important to give, comma, the unexpected result that he failed in the exam, right? So in spite of working hard, he failed in the exam, right? Now let's look at despite. So despite has in fact two rules, right? One is that with despite you usually have to give a noun form. Okay, We'll come to that later. And sometimes we have to use the verb and ing form only if it's a gerund, right? So we use this as a gerund, right? To know more about gerund, you can look at some of the later videos, or for now I am going to just skip that part, and we are going to look at despite plus verb ing form, and also despite as a noun. In this case, we are going to use the gerund. Working here is a gerund. So I can write, despite working hard, he failed in the exam. Look at the second example. He has a high position in the company, but his colleagues don't respect him. Poor guy. So I can simply write, if I am to begin with despite, I will write, despite his high position, right? I'm just using the noun. Despite his high position in the company, I'm not saying despite his high positioning, I'm not using ing. Despite his high position in the company. So this is my condition, and now comes the unexpected result. I give a comma. His colleagues don't respect him. Okay, so this is how you can use despite in two ways. One, if it's a gerund, then you can use the ing form. Otherwise, just stick to the noun form, right? Just write, like here it's written, despite his high position in company, right? More or less the whole of the first condition is written as it is, more or less, not always, right? But with practice you will be able to understand how to use in spite of and how to use despite. Moving on, we have notwithstanding. Now notwithstanding is also a word which is similar in meaning to in spite of. So let's look at the question, though she proposed to me, I rejected, or I rejected her. Okay, so the question will state, begin with notwithstanding. So I will write, notwithstanding the proposal, this is the noun form, condition met, comma, I rejected her, right? So notwithstanding the proposal, I rejected her. Okay, I feel pretty sorry for the girl, by the way, although what can I say? Anyway, so these were the first 6 rules. Now let's look at a rule which is a bit difficult. Okay, the word we have is lest. So the question will ask you, use lest. This is how the question will come. Lest is similar in meaning to unless. Alright, so let's look at a question. Put your things away or else someone will fall over them. How can we write this? We have to use lest, right? So I can just write, first I have to write the condition as it is, right? So I can say, put your things away, then I use lest. Now in the result I have to use the word should. Okay, so you have to use the word should in the result part. So put your things away lest someone should fall over them. Lest someone should fall over them. This is how you use lest correctly. If you ever have any doubts when you are watching this video, maybe you are stuck, maybe you don't understand something, maybe you have an exam coming up, then you can DM me in my Instagram channel. and I'll try to respond to you as soon as possible. Okay, so this brings us to the end of part 1 of transformation of sentences. You can DM me in my Instagram channel to get practice materials based on these questions and rules, and I'll try to send it to you as soon as possible. So if you liked what you watched, like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to my channel, and also follow me on Instagram for more such content.